is. It's so complicated. Morning.
But the Magna Carta. That's pretty.
Huh?
It's pretty.
You want another piece of paper? I'll get you another piece of paper. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We're making it easy for people.
Well, we got 3,000 ash trees that need to come down. So, still,
Because of the emerald borer, right?
yeah.
Take one, pass it down, please.
Commissioner, you need another one. Mike. Yeah, we need one more. Don, we need one more.
One more.
Ms. Thomas, Don.
Fair enough. That's fine. It's a free installation.
No, that's 50,000.
Free installation. Free installation.
Chair. Again, once you record it in place.
Ready?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, you do.
Free installation.
Into the back.
You already started this? There.
Al, start this?
Yep, good to go there.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of New Haven Finance Committee, Thursday, May 11th, 2023, 6 p.m. in the automatic chambers. The meeting can be viewed on Board of Alders YouTube. Automatic note, New Haven. The Finance Committee of the New Haven Board of Alders will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 11th at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders chamber, 165 Church Street, New Haven, to deliberate and act on the following items for the city budget for fiscal year 2023, 2024, and other budgetary items. No public testimony will be heard at this meeting. 1, OR-2023-0007, appropriating ordinance number 1, an ordinance making appropriations for operating City of New Haven departments for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. 2, OR-2023-0008, tax levy and revenue appropriating ordinance number 2, an ordinance making tax levy and revenue assumptions for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. 3, OR-2023-0019, appropriating ordinance number 3, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds fiscal year 2023 to 2024. 4, OR 2000-2023-0010, appropriating ordinance number 4, an ordinance authorizing issuance of general obligation tax anticipation notes and/or general obligation grant anticipation notes fiscal year 2024. 5, OR-2023-0011, an ordinance amendment section 17-201, the General Code of Ordinance authorizing additions and changes and permits, licenses, the fees for the fiscal year 2023-2024. 6, LM-2023-0140, order of the New Haven Board of Alders reallocating $6.3 million from the previously approved American Rescue Plan projects for the purpose of supplementing funding for eligible capital projects for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. 7, LM-2023-0221, order approving the 2023-24 Lighthouse Carousel Enterprise Fund budget. 8, LM-2023-0222, order approving the 2023-2024 Ralph Walker Skating Rink Enterprise Fund budget. 9, LM-2023-0248, order approving the 2023-24 East Rock Park Communications Tower Enterprise Fund budget. 10, LM-2023-0219, order approving the 2023-24 Arlington Memorial Golf Course Enterprise Fund budget. 11, LM-2023-0203, order imposing a levy as a municipal tax levy in the Welly Avenue Special Services District, fiscal year 2023-2024. 12, LM-2023-0202, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Town Green Special Services District, fiscal year 2023-2024. 13, LM-2023-0201, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Grand Avenue Special Service District, fiscal year 2023-2024. 14, LM-2023-0200, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Chapel West Special Services District, fiscal year 2023-2024. These items are filed with the city clerk and may be inspected at room 202, 200 Orange Street, New Haven. For order, Honorable Adam Ashon, Chair, attest, Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodations, please call 3 business days in advance, 946-7651, voice, or 946-8582, TTY. Thank you. This time I'm going to ask that we introduce our committee members, beginning to my right.
Alder Jeanette Morrison, Ward 22.
Richard Furlow, Ward 27. Good evening.
Sal DiCola, Ward 18.
Adam Marchand, Ward 25.
Ron Hurt, Ward 3.
Frank Douglas, Ward 2, to White neighborhood. Kendra Singh, Ward 5.
Anna Festa, Ward 10.
Thank you for being with us on tonight. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. If it's all right with you, I'd like to make a few announcements.
Absolutely.
Welcome everybody to our deliberations this evening. And it's a long agenda, but our hope is that we will get through it with dispatch. I first of all wanted to thank our fiscal analyst, Don Hayden, for his assistance throughout this entire process. And of course, our Director of Legislative Services, Lucas. We would be remiss if we didn't also acknowledge Mr. Michael Gormley, our acting controller, who has assisted us every step of the way. We're going to proceed a little bit out of order in that there are some items that are probably quicker and easier to move. So we'll start with some of the items at the end of the agenda just to get them done, and then we'll go into the big items, which are items 1 and 2. We got a lot of paper today, so let me just orient colleagues to what we have. Our packet, the stapled packet with the agenda on top of it, those are the orders that are associated with all the items before us, right? So those are the actual pieces of legislation that enact these items, right? So that's for your reference. But you also have paper. There are trees that gave up their lives for this meeting tonight. You have paper that actually lays out potential amendments. So there's a big packet of 3 sheets of paper, front and back, on 11 by 17 sheets of paper, right? The first 2 sheets are about a requested technical amendment from the administration, which pertains primarily to items 1 and 2, which we'll discuss then. The third sheet, a large sheet of paper, is a recommended amendment from me, right? So these 2 amendments pertain to items 1 and 2. We'll deal with them then, and I will describe in more detail. We also have a sheet of paper that's 8.5 by 11 that says, "Dear Chair Marchand and Vice Chair Hurt, this is an amendment offered by our colleague Alder Festa," which we'll get to after the other amendments. There's also another 8.5, 11 sheet of paper to Alder Marchand from Alder Nicola. That's a further amendment from our colleague from Ward 18. We'll deal with those after the other amendments. And then finally, there's a stapled correspondence, 2 sheets of paper from Niani Graham, from the Room for All Coalition, urging us to do certain things. This is similar to a testimony we received. It looks like this, but it's just for your information. It's not really going to affect our votes tonight, but there was a request to make sure we all got it, and so now we are in receipt of it, and we'll save that for the future. Well, I've got this, and now I have it again. Okay. My copy of Alder Festa's amendment has got fewer sheets of paper, so let me amend my previous statement that Alder Festa's amendment is a stapled document with 2 sheets of 8.5, 11 paper. The first page pertains to items 1 and 2. The second one pertains to the item 3. Right. So just those are the papers that we have. The one from Ms. Graham is not going to be acted on tonight, but we are in receipt of it. The other sheets of paper are amendments to the items before.
I see 2 amendments, what I have in my file, 2 amendments here, and this.
That's 2 amendments there. Yes.
Okay. And then this back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all the paperwork, and once we get to the actual items, we'll make sure that everybody's looking at the correct sheet of paper, because we're dealing with numbers, and it's important for colleagues to all be on the same page about what we're discussing. Those are my announcements, Mr. Chair.
We want to welcome Alder Santiago.
She's in there, she's white. She's white. Chair.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move items 11, 12, 13, and 14.
The item has been moved and second. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. 11, 12, 13, and 14. These are the tax levies for our 4 special services districts. Colleagues will recall that representatives from these organizations came before us a few weeks ago. The budgets were approved by the respective boards of these organizations. Primarily, the supplemental tax levies are status quo. And I urge colleagues to vote in support of these items.
Further discussion? I want to recognize Alder Hamilton for joining us today. Further discussion for these items, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? Any abstention? The ayes have it. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move items 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the enterprise funds. The Lighthouse, Ralph Walker Rink, East Rock Communications Tower, and Onling Memorial Golf Course. I believe that their presentations were in order. I think there's a longer term question on the table about where we're going with the enterprise fund for the East Rock Tower, since that seems not to be a viable enterprise anymore. So maybe in some upcoming budget cycle, we'll hear about the demise of that enterprise fund. But I believe the presentations were in order, and I urge colleagues to approve these orders. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The enterprise funds, they have already set those budgets within their district, and it's what they've agreed to, so I'm in support of the item. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate Alder Hamilton's remarks, which was really about the special services districts, what we already moved on. The enterprise funds are about the business enterprises around the Ralph Walker Rink and the Lighthouse Point and so on. But we're glad that you're supporting the items we've already voted yes on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The item has it. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move items 1 and 2.
The item has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move a technical amendment offered by the administration.
The technical amendment has been moved and seconded. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Let me orient colleagues to the appropriate paperwork for this one. Go back to the large sheets of paper. These are the 11 by 17 sheets. And you'll see they're numbered and they're given a very descriptive title, Tech. So there's Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, and Tech 4. That's the paperwork for colleagues to look at this moment. And we're really going to be looking at the first 3 pages. Page 4 actually pertains to a different item. And so these are corrections and adjustments that the Director of Management and Budget has requested that we consider. I have reviewed them carefully. I am supporting them, and I will walk us through what they are, one by one. So if you look at Tech 1, and there are 18 items listed there on the line column, right? Item 1, labor relations, it's a title change from labor relations staff attorney to Board of Ed, Labor and Employment Staff Attorney. You'll see all the way to the right that the fiscal impact is 0. Item 2, in the Finance Department, another title change from Deputy Purchasing Agent to BoE Procurement Coordinator. Again, no fiscal impact. Item 3, Librarian 2. This is a new position for $57,850. This is the family librarian position in the Wilson Library, which we've heard described, but it was an inadvertent omission when the item was sent to us. The administration is requesting we put it in. Item 4, lead inspector. This was accidentally deleted. And so it was never the administration's intention to remove this position. This amendment would put it back in. Item 5, personnel director. They hired someone at a higher rate than the rate that was published in the budget. This amendment would correct that and move it from $94,500 to $103,000. That's an adjustment of $8,500. That person is already hired. Item 6, assessor's office. There was a Scribner's error in the salary. It was published as $120,500. The intention was $127,500. That's a $7,000 difference. Item 7, coordinator HR administration. The administration proposes to eliminate that title. That generates savings of $86,000. Item 8, executive assistant to human resources. The administration proposes to restore that title for $66,000. This was the position that the incumbent had. The job was reorganized. That incumbent was given a higher salary and the higher title, but then that incumbent was hired as the personnel director and get a higher salary. And so now the administration wants to take that reorganized title and put it back to what it was before. The net between those two actions is a savings of $20,000. Item 9, in the Community Services Organization, Deputy Director for Children and Family Services. My neighbor, Maria Damiani, used to have this role for many, many years. She passed away not too many years ago. The administration wishes to change title to Deputy Director of Programs. There's 0 fiscal impact for that. Item 10, part-time building inspectors. The proposal is to eliminate that. That's it was a proposed pool of $200,000 to use to hire part-time inspectors. The new building official thinks that's not the way to go. So it's a savings of $200,000. Instead, items 10 and 11 is the creation of 2 full-time positions in that department. The assistant building and plans official. This would be someone with multiple trade certifications at a salary of $87,605. There is a net savings there because we're decreasing by 200, but we're increasing by 2 times 87,605, which would be what? 165,210, I think is what that would be. TT&P, item 13. Manager of Process Improvement. The proposal is to move that title from TT&P to the CAO office. There's a 0 fiscal impact. It's just changing that person's department. Okay, items 14, 15, 16. These are big ones. These items are about the fact that there are 2 settled contracts and 1 tentative agreement that's being voted on as we speak, actually. Perhaps that voting is over, actually. 3144, I believe, had their vote today. And the administration didn't know what those raises would be when the administration submitted this budget, but now they do. And it turns out it's more money than they thought it was going to be. So what this action does is it takes those positions subject to those that are governed by that contract, and they're increasing the amounts of the salary according to what the contract says they should be increased by. And in aggregate, it's $3.6 million for the 3144 contract. It's just over $1.4 million for the 884 contract, and it's $363,513 for the attorney's contract, right? And so that adds money to the budget. But it's a responsible thing to do to make sure that the budget is accurate, that the published positions within the budget are actually compliant with the new labor agreements with those locals. Items 17 and 18 are positions requested that would be reimbursed by the Board of Ed, but they have to be, their amounts have to be adjusted because of changes in contracts. And so that's what those adjustments are. So the aggregate of all of those changes is an increase in the general fund budget by $5,430,384. Let's turn to page 2. Tech 2 is what I call it. These are general fund non-personnel changes. Item 19, $400,000 for the health department. Colleagues might remember that recently this committee and our board approved a contract of up to $400,000 with Worldwide Travel Services for temporary nursing services, right? We have dozens of nursing vacancies in our city. We were using a temp agency to fill in all those gaps, and we approved a contract of up to $400,000. But guess what? The money wasn't in the budget. So this would put the money in the budget to pay for those people and for those services, $400,000. Item 20, IT differential per bargaining unit agreement. I think we call that a contract. $42,000. So in the IT staff belong to a union, and their contract says that if you work beyond normal working hours, there's a differential that you have. And the aggregate amount of increase required to satisfy the contract for those people, the anticipated amount, is $42,000. 21, Family Justice Center. The administration meant to give it a budget of $75,000, but the submitted budget only gave it $50,000. That's a difference of $25,000. Item 22, administration, business travel. The administration would like to increase that by $20,000. Item 23, in other contractual services, the administration would like to increase that by $90,000. Item 24, Wintergreen, repairs and maintenance. The administration would like to increase that by $20,000. 25, vehicle maintenance, other contractual services. The administration would like to increase that by $10,000. And 26, central services equipment. The administration would like to increase that by $80,000. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items amount to an aggregate of $220,000 in additional expenditure. Item 27, this is the contract reserve item. Because what we saw on the previous page was all those budgeted positions are being increased by the negotiated amount. You don't need as much money in the contract reserve because you're putting it in the other position by position. So the administration recommends that we reduce that item by $3 million. Vacancy savings due to positional increases. I'll take this along with the attrition items, the next 2 items. In every budget, the administration assumes that some number of positions will be vacant for some period of time during the budget, right? So when those positions are vacant, guess what? You don't have to pay somebody if there's no one to pay. Right. So that's money that gets lumped into a vacancy savings line. Attritional savings means somebody leaves, right? And then you have a new person who's at the bottom of the scale. Like there's savings in the budget when there's vacancies, there's savings in the budget when there's turnover, right? Those accounts capture those savings. The administration would like to increase the savings in those accounts, which is a negative term, right? Savings is a negative number. And they want that because anytime there's a position that's vacant, if it's a position had an increase because of a contract, that means the savings is commensurately increased. So that's why the administration is asking for those vacancy savings and attrition accounts to get bigger, because we've settled contracts with the unions that govern dozens and dozens of now bigger salaried positions. Finally, item 31, the mayor's task force on HIV/AIDS. This was an inadvertent omission from the mayor's original proposal. The administration wishes to put $5,000 towards that item. So on this page, the net effect of all those changes is a decrease in the budget by $3.1 million, just a little bit more than that. Let's go to Tech 3. This is kind of a summary page. So when you take an increase of $5,430,384 and you subtract from it a decrease of $3,180,384, what you get is an increase of $2.25 million. The administration's proposal is to increase the allocation of ARPA funds from 5.5 million to 7.75 million in order to cover that gap. So that is the technical amendment. There's one more page, but that's going to be a different item, so we'll save discussion of that for the later item around permits and fees language. I'm encouraging colleagues to support this. I will just give you a brief preview that my recommended amendment is going to change it further. But I think it's good to have an adjusted baseline for the purposes of discussion. I think that the changes that the mayor that the administration is requesting make sense, and I encourage colleagues to support this technical amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Further discussion? Yes, Alder Frollo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I am in support of this technical amendment. I would like to thank our chair, Marsham, for putting this together and laying it out very clearly to us. I want to especially indicate that although some of these are just title changes, there are a couple of additions here that I think are very important for the continued advancement of our city and revenue, which is the 2 positions in the building department. And I'm also hoping that through the attrition, we will be able to get these positions filled so that this number will go down. And so having said all that, once again, I am in support of this technical amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Alder Fester.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for explaining these technical amendments, but at this point, I can't support this document only because I have some questions to some of the items that have increased. Needing to know why they were increased, what the additional funding will be used for, and it also somewhat changes my thought process of my amendments, because now we've increased the allocation. Even though ARPA funds are being used, I still would like to know why some of these positions have been increased in the budget from, whatever. I mean, I have my little notes here, but this was, a document we just received. We studied it somewhat a few minutes before we began, and you explained it clearly, but even with that, there are still questions. And for that reason, I cannot support these technical amendments at this point, and hopefully my questions can be answered, the ones that I do have, regarding some of the items in this technical amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Morrison.
Yes, I am in support of this, these technical amendments. Our city has to move forward, right? And so these type of things just helps to straighten things out. Basically, Mr. Chair, again, as everyone said, thank you so much for explaining each one line by line. I don't see a real problem with this. You gotta spend to win, and you have to straighten things out. Things that came before us in March, as time went on, the administration saw that there was need for change. They presented the change, and I'm in support. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm also in support of the technical amendment document. Certain things have to be covered. On here, one of the increases is money for the health department. That's a must do. We need to cover our students in schools and make sure we have the nurses, okay? So that's a valid increase in my opinion. So I'm in support of the document and I ask colleagues to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I stand in support of this too. It's been a difficult 3 years. We're trying to get our city back going forward and growing as our population keeps growing. And I stand in support of this. It's not an easy road, and I thank everybody that's played a part in this to explaining it and getting it all together. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? I too want to say that I am in support of this item here. I am, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the work that you put into this. I want to say that I agree with my colleague, Alderman DeCola. This has been a difficult 3 years, and I see when we work together as we've done this budget season, I can see that things are coming together for our city. So I urge all my colleagues to support. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Nay. Me, I oppose.
Any abstain? Ayes have it. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move an additional amendment.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I now direct colleagues' attention to another large sheet of paper, this one called Rec 1. And the flip side is called Rec 2. Just imagine the thought that went into the naming of the pages. That Rec is short for recommended. Recommended. It'll be the third sheet of paper in the large format, okay? So if you look at Rec 1, recommended amendment, page 1, there's a bunch of changes. So let me just describe it briefly at a general level, and then I'll describe it line by line. The administration proposed a budget that increased the general fund position count by 37 positions. I'm including the technical amendment, right? This amendment takes many of those positions out, like more than 2 dozen of them. It says no to more than 2/3 of the new positions that administration is requesting. Why do we do that? Well, because we've said yes to efforts that the city is making to make the city a more attractive place to work. We have approved multiple contracts now. We're on our way to approving a few more that substantially raise rates of pay for nurses, attorneys, frontline clerical workers, professional staff. We'll see how the vote turns out today, but that could be another contract coming our way. Like the rates of pay for city staff are going to be much better because of these successful contract negotiations. In addition, we are approving numerous pay rate increases for executive and confidential employees as well, which we'll get to in just a moment. Those changes, let's hope, put the city in a better position to attract applicants, hire people, and retain people. So we are saying to the city, we support your efforts to bring people into the employ of the city of New Haven and to hold on to them. But all of those efforts are raising the bill. And the way that we try to keep things under control is we're saying no to many of the new positions that the administration has requested. So that's where we're at. I would also further just point out that in my review of all the positions, every single new position, I looked at the department that new position will be in. And I looked at the February financial and budgetary report to see, and looked at pages 80 through 87, which are the vacancies reports. There are multiple vacancies in departments where the administration has asked to create new positions, including in the same title. So when I saw that, I said, we're not creating a new position. We are putting the city in a position to have greater success in hiring people. And we encourage the city staff to go and do that. But do that first. And then let's see where we are 6-8 months from now, or certainly 9 months from now when we have the new budget, and then come talk to us about some additional positions. So that's the overall narrative here, but let me go into the detail. So on this sheet of paper, in the CAO office, City Projects and Implementation Coordinator, the adjusted amount is $94,370. That's taken out. City Planner 3 at $82,075. That is taken out. Commission on Equal Opportunity, Regulatory and Compliance Coordinator at $109,179. Taken out. Finance Deputy Purchasing Agent, $94,370. Taken out. Fire Department, 3 captains at $106,131 and 1 lieutenant at $95,558, taken out. Health Department, 2 senior sanitarian positions at $71,270, taken out. Health Department, Operations Manager, Environmental Health, $89,955, removed. Parks and Public Works, Parks 4-person, $70,035, removed. Parks and Public Works, Caretaker, $53,551, removed. There's another new additional caretaker position that is kept in. Caretaker 3 at $60,878, taken out. There is 1 caretaker 3 position that's new that's kept. Police, Lieutenant, $97,873. Sergeant, 3 sergeant positions at $87,813. 3 detectives at $86,531. All 7 of those positions removed. I will note for the record that there are multiple vacant lieutenant and sergeant and detective positions in the budget today. They can promote people into those vacant positions. Municipal Animal Control at $57,015, removed. There is 1 additional Municipal Animal Control officer position that is brought into the budget. There is currently 1 vacant Animal Control officer position. TTMP, Active Transportation Planner, $89,955, removed. TTT Parking Enforcement Officer, $49,011, removed. There is another Parking Enforcement Officer position that is kept. Youth and Rec, Park Ranger, $54,159. That position is removed. There is an additional Park Ranger position that was proposed that's kept. There's also a Park Ranger position that's open, and Martin Torres Quintero's position, which is 1 click above the Park Ranger position, that's open as well. So you can see that we're weeding out a bunch of the new positions, but there are other positions that will be added, and there's plenty of vacant positions that can be dealt with. The city administration proposed making increases to various executive management and confidential employees. What is below are the ones that this amendment would change. If this amendment doesn't mention a particular position, that means that this amendment does not change those. So let me just bring our attention to the ones that are positive in the budget change number. If you go down to CAO, Administrator, there's a proposal to increase by $5,000, right? The city proposed increasing the position to $135,000. This amendment would further raise it to $140,000. Why? Why would I do that? Because the deputy CAO is going to be making more than $135,000 because of the local 3144 contract if it gets ratified and if we approve it. And we did want a situation where the CAO is making less money than our deputy. Same thing goes for the engineer. The city's engineer, because of the 3144 contract, if it's ratified today, and if we approve it, the deputy engineer is making $144,000 under the new contract next year. So we brought his salary, this amendment brings his salary up an additional $9,000 to $146,000, so that there's a little bit of breathing room, not much actually, between the department head and his top earning deputy. But to pay for those, increases to those two positions, there are other positions that were decreased, where the increases were moderated. Let me just be clear about that. There's no position here that someone's getting a pay decrease. Everybody's getting an increase. It's just that it's moderated from what was originally proposed. Director of Legislative Services from 126 to 125, savings $1,000. Mayor, Budget Director's Office. This is the Budget Director. From 152 to 150, that's $2,000 savings. Director of Labor Relations from 136 to 132, that's $4,000 in savings. City Librarian from 145 to 139, that's $6,000 in savings. Director of PSAP from 114.5 to 110, that's $4,500 in savings. Fair Rent Executive Director from 85 to 82.5, that's a $2,500 savings. And finally, the building official from 125 to 122.5, that's a $2,500 change. And so if you just look at those items, the executive management salary adjustment items, the net effect of all of those is status quo, basically. So, well, it doesn't appear that way on this sheet. Actually, it's a net negative, yeah. That produces savings in the amount of $2,090,449. So the net effect of all of these changes, the elimination of several positions, new positions, by the way, proposed new positions, and the moderation of some of the increases to executive management produces a savings of just over $2 million. On the next page, which is entitled Rec 2, you can see some additional changes. These are various pots of money to fund temporary staff for different departments. So city plan, the city wanted to increase their budget to $16,550. This amendment would bring it down to $16,000, which is a savings of $550. Economic development from 75 to 50, that's $25,000 in savings. Engineering temporary and part-time help from $20,000 to $18,999, that's $1,001 savings. Sometimes you have to move something by a more intricate number in order to make all the numbers work out. So that's what that is. Library part-time aides from 575 to 550, that's $25,000 savings. TTP crossing guards from 625 to 575, that's a $50,000 savings. And finally, youth and rec seasonal employee, the pool would be changed from proposed 483 to 425, that's a $58,000 savings. The total for non-personnel adjustments is $159,551. So when you add that amount, 159,551 to the $2,090,449, you get $2,250,000. That's the net savings of all the changes I just described. And guess what that enables us to do? It enables us not to increase the ARPA allocation in this budget. So it's a little bit odd that we increased the ARPA allocation in the technical amendment, but then we brought it right back to where it was before with this amendment. Right, so this amendment keeps our ARPA allocation at 5.5. And it basically says if you're going to increase people's pay rates, then you got to say no to more of the new positions. You'll also note that it reduces the overall size of our budget from $664,970,609 to $662,720,609. That is my recommended amendment, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Alderman Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I stand in support of these amendments, whatever you want to call it.
My amendment, yes.
I commend you for the hard work you put into this to go line by line to find these savings, to not to use ARPA money. And I'm in support of this. Again, thank you for your hard work.
Any more? Alderman Furlow?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'll yield to Alder Festival. I'm still getting my thoughts together. Okay.
Thank you. Alder Fesco.
Thank you, sir. You stole my line. I was trying to get by. Okay, I don't want to say I support or not support this yet because I have just, this is discussion, we can ask questions, right? Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Because the amendments before you that I have are very similar to these, with the exception of my amendments eliminate both ranger positions. Reason being is because the departments were merged. We had Parks and Rec that became a department last year, and I think it needs to be reviewed as to how we really need to manage that department, what is truly needed.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. It sounds like Alder Festa is making case for an amendment that hasn't been made or moved. If she has a question, she should probably ask it.
Alder Fesco.
Well, I'm just having a conversation. Should I, okay.
You
Then I will
should have a
wait.
question, you
Go
should
ahead and
have.
ask your question.
I will wait then to present my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Frollo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I am in support of these amendments. We all know how our city has really come upon, well, not just our city, but the nation has come upon very hard times. And we have had tremendous difficulty in hiring at certain salary ranges. And we are very carefully decreasing a number of salaries to have it fit within our budget and still make it attractive to candidates. We are decreasing a large number of positions, new positions, because of current vacancies in departments, and that makes a lot of sense. And we are also not using ARPA funds for salary, which also makes a lot of sense in this particular item. And so I am in support of this. And I want to stress again that we are on serious times. I did hear something, so I was going to quick comment on the parks. We've had a lot of testimony on the condition of our parks. And so I am in support of eliminating a couple of those positions, but retaining one, because that is a source of entertainment for our people. It is also much needed as the COVID mandates are gone, people are out, the parks are full, we have complaints of a lot of littering, and so we have to somehow create a balance of maintaining our services as well as keeping a tight hold of the money that we spend. And so I am in support of this. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alder Fesco.
We're not wearing masks now, so I guess you can see my expression. Yeah, I'll make a comment if you don't mind, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
So right now I can't support it because I would like to have a conversation about, some of the amendments I wish to present as well. So at this time, and hopefully by the time we reach the actual full Board of Alders vote, I can support it because this is very similar to my amendments with just a couple of differences that I feel are important to mention. So for that reason, right now I can't support it. So if we're going to vote on it now without hearing or compromising with some of the other options available this evening, then I can't support it, if that makes any sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I want to say that I am in support of the changes, the amendment. I have the esteemed opportunity, privilege of working with the chair in this matter, and he's put a lot of hard work into this for the betterment of our city. And I want to urge everyone, all my colleagues, to support this amendment. Thank you. Alder Morrison.
Yes, I did. I wanted to just say that I am in support. I think the things that are proposed here are fair, especially when we're looking at the adjustments of the executive management. We have a responsibility to make sure that various positions are enticing to people, but at the same time, we have to have a clear balance because our resources of money is not as big as maybe the state and other places. And so in order to have that sweet spot, I think, through this amendment, our colleague from 125, new glasses, 125, you did a great job in hitting that to make sure that we have a good balance. Not all happy, but everyone's not all sad. So that's what you call a good negotiation. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm in support of this amendment. These make good fiscal responsible items for our city and then increase the budget. And so these are some fiscal responsibilities. I'm in support of this document.
Thank you. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me just say,
Chair Marchand, I commend you for your hard work. I know it's not easy, and God bless you for the effort. Yes, indeed. It shows that, you care. We all care. Doing the legwork is hard, right? And I support this document with these technical amendments because it makes a difference. And we don't have
our performance for this, so.
that's a plus. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Alder Santiago.
I guess she said what I was gonna say, so no, I'm also in favor of the recommendation. Again, under Marchand, we commend you because it's not easy doing this, so it takes a long time, your personal time, and you do it, with love, I guess, so. And also, one of the reasons that I'm in favor, we're not gonna, just don't decrease in the ARPA funds, we decrease it somewhere else. So I like the thinking, instead of increasing it, giving saving the 2.25. Okay, that's what I'm gonna save, so I'm moving the recommendation.
Alder Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just makes more sense to eliminate positions if there are vacancies. Simple as that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alder Furlong.
Thank you for giving me another chance to speak, Mr. Vice Chair. I just wanted to mention also that that the mayor did not present a frivolous budget to us. I believe that he presented a very thoughtful budget to move our city forward. It's not often that we can say that. And I believe that even with the new positions that he proposed, it was because there's a real need with the vacancies to continuous services. It's just that we cannot in good conscience create new positions with vacancies. And so we do encourage, as Chair Marchand said, I just want to reiterate it, we do encourage these departments to report back to this board, this committee, let us know how things are going, and see whether in the next budget next year, these new positions are justified. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstain? Ayes have it. Thank you. All right, great.
Any further amendments?
Any further amendments? Alder Festa.
Thank you. I do have an amendment to the budget.
Are you moving an amendment?
I am
Alder
moving an
Festa?
amendment.
Second.
The amendment has been moved and seconded. Further discussion, any discussion?
She's gonna
Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. While, I appreciate Chair's amendments, many of the items are exactly what you'll see on mine. The only differences, and I will only point out the differences, is that in my proposed amendment, I eliminated both park ranger positions only because since the two departments were combined and created, basically a new Parks and Rec department, a possible overhaul may need to be done before committing to these positions. And we should look at the programming and what the rangers are doing now and basically show evidence and take a deeper dive into those positions and maybe, not necessarily eliminate them because we still have a vacant position there, but rethink those positions and rethink what needs to be done in that department. The other difference is I had actually kept all of the positions for Department of Public Works, but I am willing to compromise on that one. I just feel strongly about the Department of Public Works. They're the ones that people actually see a difference. And when it comes down to Public Works and Parks, it was mentioned earlier how important it is to maintain our parks, to keep them up, and I'm a big proponent of that. So I will compromise on those positions because only a few were eliminated. But I had kept the whole department, but I'm willing to void that from my amendment as a compromise. Police department, I actually had maintained the positions in the police department only because we had removed, or the administration had removed some sworn positions a couple of years ago. And now they're being presented again, but I totally understand the vacancies that we have in detectives. I looked at those items as well, looked at the vacancies in all these departments, and I'm willing to compromise on the PD as well. So we can pretty much, that's a wash. So right now, the only difference is with the park rangers. And then the other item that, I feel strongly for only because there was a large amount of public testimony with regard to pedestrian safety, and that is the position for transportation, traffic, and parking for the active transportation planner in the amount of $89,955. So that one is one I feel strongly about because of pedestrian safety and the push for pedestrian safety. And I believe those were the main differences. I mean, everything else, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. We did speak earlier. I appreciate the work behind it, the thought processes behind it, and I think they're very similar with the exception of the park rangers and the TTMP position, all for the reasons I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, Alder Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So Ken, my colleague from the 10th Ward, actually briefly described let me just say before I ask the question, it's understandable that there's significant overlap between Alder Festa's amendment, which she prepared before she learned of my amendment. So there's a lot of overlap. And so it's understandable that it takes a moment to kind of adjust and to just identify what the differences are. But I believe I heard you say, I believe I heard Alder Festa say that the only position that she would remove beyond what is already moved is the park ranger position, which I believe is budgeted for $57,159. And then the only other thing I heard Alder Festa say is that she wanted to add back into the budget the active transportation planner, which is $89,955. So if you do the arithmetic, that means that if those are the only two moving pieces in your amendment, Alder Festa, the net impact of that is 6, 9, 8, $32,896 increase. Mr. Vice Chair, I would ask if Alder Festa would confirm that.
Alder Festa.
That would be correct, and adding back removing the park ranger position and adding the TTMP position. Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Does Alder Festa have a source to offset that increase in the budget?
Alder Festa.
Offset the increase, it's being offset with the lowering the overall budget. It still lowers the budget.
No.
Perhaps I'm not understanding.
No, Mr. Vice Chair.
Oh, it's increasing it by 32,000.
So.
Go ahead, Mr.
Vice Chair.
But your budget was decreasing the mayor's budget. And so the 32,000 would be the difference between, sorry, I gotta find it now. It would be on your page. So it would be $662,720,609 plus the $32,860.
Correct, if I may, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, Mr.
It's correct, Alder Festa, that you've increased the expenditure by 32,896, but your amendment does not increase the revenue by that same amount. And so your amendment is not properly formatted unless it leaves the budget balanced. So your amendment adds $32,896 to the budget in the expenditure side. How do you either increase the revenue by $32,896 or you find some other thing to cut by $32,896?
Well, then we cut.
Otherwise, you would leave the budget out of balance.
I guess my wavelength, my brain thought process is that the budget, the original budget is $664,970,609 and cut down with your savings to $662,720, correct? So that $32,896 for me is just adding it to your total $662,720, $609.
Yes, on their expenditure side, but how about the revenue side? See, the mayor, so if I may, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, maybe I'm just totally.
So you could, for example, Alder Festa, you could, for example, just to help you out, look at tech page 2 and look at one of those items, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Remember that added up to $220,000? You could say, let's remove $32,896 from one of those lines, and then you could pay for the increase that you're proposing. You have to do that. Or you could say, well, let's allocate $32,896 more ARPA dollars into the revenue side, into the budget, the revenue side. That would also pay for your increase. But absent doing either of those things, your amendment would leave the budget out of balance and would be out of order.
Well, then let's remove, because I have questions regarding this, and unless a case can be made and questions answered, there's an increase of $25,000 for, I have to look at this, hang on, I have to find it.
I might suggest, if I can, Mr. Vice Chair, that our colleague from Ward 10 might look at one of those lines that's bigger than $32,896 and just remove $32,896 from it. That would be the simplest way to actually propose.
Yeah, but I have to look at all this now.
Well, now's the time to do it.
So while you're looking at that, we want to call on our colleague, Alder Santiago.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. On the Festus, I'm going to help you out right here. Now, I will support this instead of, since we got a lot of ways on the parks condition. The park rangers is $54,159. I would add a caretaker as $53,551. I will swap those two positions. I will support that. Taking out the ranger and adding the caretaker.
So is this a point of order where an amendment is being?
I mean, this discussion, I'm not trying to help you out here.
No,
Yeah.
We're discussion.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that it's close enough, is what, like, $4 difference?
Can you tell me what page you're on and what
It
line
is
item?
rec one. When it says the positions that are not gonna be filled. The one that is gonna be taken
What
out.
page though? What page are you on?
Regulation one, right?
Rec one.
Oh, rec one, okay.
If you
What
go-
line item?
Yeah. If you go to Parks and Public Works, caretaker is 53. And the park rangers is at 1. So since we have so many complaints about the condition of the parks, I would support that swap, not the TTP coordinator. And it's just like $300 difference, I guess, something like that. I guess, I mean, my math is good, it's 500 for. It will be safe, right?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I thank our colleague, Alder Santiago, for his helpful suggestion. It remains, of course, up to Alder Festa if she would care to change her amendment, which is not yet in order. It needs a little work to be brought into order because we can't make amendments that leave the budget out of balance. And I wanted to correct an error that I made. I just double checked the amounts. The ranger positions, as we see on Rec 1, are at $54,159. The active transportation manager, as Alder Festa said before, is at $89,955. So when you subtract the smaller from the larger, it's $35,836. So that's the gap. $35,836 that Alder Festa would need to deal with in order for her amendment to be in order.
35 or 32?
35,836.
Mr. Chair.
Staff.
It's actually 35,796.
We're all good at that.
Why is it 796? 89995 minus 54,159.
Sorry.
No, I think it's 835. I think it's 35,836. Yeah.
No, it's 89,955.
Is it 89,955? Okay. This is what happens when you try to do it quickly. It's fine. 89,955. Thank you. That makes a difference.
$500.
It does. 4. Okay, it's 14, 8, 9. So is that $35,396?
35,796.
Oh my gosh, if you have a calculator. you
Yeah,
can just do it.
I got my phone. There you go. There you go. Clear it out.
Thank you. 89,955 minus 54,159. 89,955 minus 54,159. I used to be able to do these things so fast. 35,796. Okay. So it's important to have the correct numbers. Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Thank you, Alder Santiago. Alder Festa, have you identified where
No, I
you're
was
going?
doing math along with you.
All right, so
So,
if you're not able to do it, we'll just have to rule your amendment out of order and move on.
no, I mean, we're still discussing, right? I'm still absorbing what Alder
You need
Santiago
to
said
take an
about
amendment.
taking the caretaker position of 53,551 in place of the park ranger, which I will support, but there's a difference of 1,508, which if I did.
I think it's only $608.
Don,
Why don't you,
how much? You did the math already?
I think difference $608.
$608? All right, well, we just add that to the budget. $600. Or move it to ARPA funds.
Saving.
Oh, it's a savings?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said it was more.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I would invite our colleague to withdraw her amendment, take a moment to get her numbers together, and then come back in a few. We have time. But I think rather than discussing through something that's not properly formatted, let's give you a moment to get it together.
No, I think we're good. I'm willing to do that, what was proposed in removing the park ranger for the caretaker position, and the difference is $608 savings.
Caretaker one.
Which is 53,551.
53,551. And then the other one is 89,955. 404.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarity for staff.
Yes,
Probably for everyone.
If I may
staff.
describe it to make sure I understand it, Alder Festa, your amendment, which you're restating and changing, would add back a caretaker one position, which is at $53,551.
Oh, and now we need to,
No, I'm confused.
no, I got it now, yes. Give me a few minutes, because I think,
Staff, did you?
No. I think, I think it'd be better, Mr. Vice Chair, if we allowed our colleague from the 10th Ward to take a few moments,
yes,
get it together, and come back with a fresh amendment. And it's understandable that her amendment there's so much overlap with hers in mind that it's understandable you need a moment to adjust. And I think it would be appropriate for you to withdraw your previous amendment and then come back when you're ready to make the new one.
okay. I withdraw my previous amendment
Thank you.
and come back.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I have an amendment. Transferring $50,000 from account number 113780-56694 Central Services, Other Contractual Service, to account number 14040935-56694, various organization contributions, Kappa, Other Contractual Services.
Second.
I'll second that.
The amendment has been moved and second. Discussion. Alder DeCola.
What I am doing is helping Schubert Theater increase their educational department support to the following program: Schubert Summer Theater Art Camp, to hire high school teaching assistants and to fund financial aid so all campers have access. Helping over 125 students participate in camp, either as a camper, teacher assistant, or intern. Increasing free video showing for classroom across the state this year to serve over 7,500 students. Free family workshops at Seton Library to serve over 150 children. Family Fun Day open house events, backstage tour, trick-or-treat events free to families in October, serving over 600 parents and children. Student matinee free tickets provided to Title I schools in New Haven to serve over 2,200 students. A free book for every Title I student that enters. Free workshop provided to classes attending. This program is to increase Schubert's help to helping our children have other activities through the course of the summer and through the course of the year, and I hope you'll support my amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support my colleague's amendment. I think it is known that our colleague has spent more time working with the Schubert Theater in the past, as long as I've been 12 years. And I think respectfully, we all should support this because I personally have seen the change that has become with Kappa and the Schubert Theater. It's open to people who look like me now, more so, and I really appreciate my colleagues' support and all the work he does with that entity.
Thank you.
I do support it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Just a quick question for you, which is the organization that is giving up money, central services, other contractual services. Could our colleagues say what that is and how much it's going to miss $50,000? Like how big is that account, for example? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Auditor Cole.
That's the one where I don't have, how big is that account, but I checked with our controller. He says that fund is the energy fund, where that is what that line is. And he said it can be taken from there. It will not affect the bottom line on what our city will be needing through the course of the year. So, thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor of this amendment? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Ayes have it. Any further amendments? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Round two. Let's see if I got this now. So, look, honestly, if this is gonna get denied, I'm just gonna withdraw the whole amendment because, it's basically just taking away the park ranger position, replacing it with the caretaker position. There's a difference of $608 with the addition of that TTMP position. So there's a net savings of $608 that we could put towards Board of Ed.
Second.
But there's not a motion.
There's
Oh,
no
sorry,
motion.
amendment.
Yes. Sorry, y'all. We want motion has been made and seconded. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Would that be discussion enough what I just mentioned, or should I repeat it?
You need to go ahead on and repeat it.
Okay, so my amendment is to add to remove one of the park ranger position, replace it with the caretaker position. And add, I want to get the right title, the active transportation planner position that was eliminated in the previous amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Would our colleague from the 10th Ward please give the specific amounts of these and what the ending balance is as a result of these changes?
So the active transportation planner position is in the amount of $89,955. The caretaker position is $53,551. With the removal of the park ranger position, the savings is
What is the park ranger position once again?
I'm sorry, the park ranger position is 53, hold on, sorry.
Hey, just a point of order, Mr.
54,
Chair.
yes.
The active transportation planner is $89,995.
95 or 55?
$89,995. $89,995.
So is this the misprint here on the?
It was previously corrected by staff, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
But on document Rec 1, it states 955. It was just corrected? Okay, my
Yes.
apologies.
Oh, wait a minute, staff.
I think
No, this is the right number here, 89,955.
89,955 is the correct number.
My apologies, Mr. Chair, someone said it was 89,995.
That I did, and I had it wrong.
Okay.
So it's 89,955, but this is a number that was provided by the Director of Management Budget.
My apologies to the committee.
Thank you.
A lot of numbers, a lot of numbers.
Alder Festa,
It is correct then in this document? Just clarification?
yes, it is correct.
Okay, so again, the active transportation planner salary is $89,955. The caretaker position is $53,551. The ranger position is $54,159. Swapping out the ranger position for the caretaker position and adding that active transportation planner position, when you do the math, it's a savings of $608.
No, it's not all, Mr.
I'm sorry, okay, so I'm sorry, between the ranger position and the caretaker position is a savings of $608.
Right.
Okay. So, Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Chair.
if that's indeed true, then you would subtract $608 from the full cost of the active transportation planner position, correct? So that would bring that amount to $89,347. So how does your amendment deal with the $89,347 you're proposing to add to our budget?
Well, I still have to review this though. Because I didn't say, I didn't.
Would it be safe to say
Yes.
withdraw your amendment?
No.
Mr. Chair, we cannot entertain an amendment that would cause us to be out of compliance with the ordinance. Like, we have to pass a balanced budget. So if you're changing, if you're changing the expenses, then you have to change the revenues, or you have to find offsetting expenditures.
Well,
Like
let's see.
89, do I still
sorry.
have the
I'm
chair?
sorry, yes,
Yes,
Mr.
you
Chair. My
have.
apologies,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
So this is a little frustrating. I understand, Alder Festa, that it was a lot to adjust to. Your amendment much of it was already kind of made, right? So I understand that. But this is a basic thing. If you're moving an amendment that adds money to the budget, as we've amended it, then you gotta find offsetting expenses, or you have to say, okay, let's allocate an additional $89,347 in ARPA funds. You could do that. That would balance it out. So which is it going to, Alder Festa?
Alder Festa?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Please, my apologies, but, I presented amendments. I heard yours. I was comparing them to mine. We had all day to look at this, and I did, and made mine. You made yours. And now we're at the table having discussions, and the math without all my proper documents in front of me becomes a little more challenging. So I appreciate everyone's patience, but to make reference that I'm not prepared or seeming that I'm not prepared is, this is all coming out. I'm happy to accept that recommendation of the ARPA funds and making up the difference of that position with the ARPA funds, since we could take advantage of that, and making it the difference of, I lost my numbers. Of that 89,000 from the ARPA, 300, what was it, 47? From the ARPA funds.
At this point, we want to hear from our staff.
Just for a point of clarification, you're planning to do away with the park ranger, add back a caretaker, and then also add back the active transportation planner, less the difference between the two, the caretaker and the park ranger. Okay, that's a new twist for the first time. Okay, I got it.
Thank you. Alder Festa,
I think,
I believe so. I think, did we get the math right? And
the math is right. Mr. Chair.
So just for the sake of being super clear, Alder Festa, as I understand it, your amendment has a net increase in expenditures of $89,347, but also would have a net increase in revenues of $89,347, which would put it in balance. And if that's true, then we have a properly formatted amendment that we can now discuss. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further discussion? Alder Santiago.
Okay. I have a question for Alder Festa, if I may, through you, Chair.
Yes.
Is this one amendment or two? Are you amending one, the caretaker for the ranger, one amendment, then adding the other one together? Or no, it's one altogether?
Alder Festa.
Thank you, Vice Chair. It's one amendment.
Point of order, we often make amendments that have multiple changes. You'll notice that my recommended amendment had multiple changes on multiple orders and ordinances. And so she has a properly formatted amendment that presents multiple changes to the expenditure side and one change on the revenue side, and they balance out.
You know, I'm just want to clarify. As I said it before, I will support the caretaker for the ranger, but I don't like the traffic and parking. That one, I would not. That was, there's two, that's why I asked if there's two different. I would support one and not the other. That's why I asked the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes, so my proposition is to add that position. We heard a lot of testimony in regard to pedestrian safety, and a lot of the public was really passionate about this position. I went through some of the testimony, the written testimony, some of the oral testimony that we heard during the public hearings, and it seemed like that position was one that would maybe help with the concerns of our residents and pedestrian safety, which is why I felt it was important to keep that position, in the budget. And the reason behind the two rangers is just to take a big picture look at our Parks Department, and be sure that, do we need two more rangers? Do we? It's not necessarily saying no in the future. It's just taking a magnifying glass and really seeing where we are with what we really, really need. Since, things have changed since years ago when park rangers were a big, big part of a city, a municipality. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, we have pretty much a new Parks and Rec department that we need to really focus and look at with a magnifying glass. And that's my reasoning.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and I'm going to speak in opposition to this amendment. I believe it's appropriate to keep the ranger. The original proposal was for multiple rangers. My amendment got rid of one and kept the other because I felt that the additional ranger position would provide more opportunities for programmatic staff to launch programs and support programs for our youth in particular, but for all park users. I think that's a useful thing. And in regards to the caretaker position, I think overall it'd be wonderful to stick with the city's original proposal, but I just don't think we have the money for it. We need to be very constrained with our budget, given uncertainties coming down the road. And so I would encourage colleagues to vote in opposition to this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And I really appreciate the time that we're taking to go over these numbers to make sure the numbers are right. But I am not a supporter of this amendment. But I really do appreciate all the time that we're taking to look at these positions. These are all very important positions. And the original amendment that we had made, I think that it was well thought out. What we sort of did was split the baby in many ways, giving one position where we thought it was extremely important to keep our city moving forward, to eliminate positions that can probably and most likely should wait at least one more year before coming back to us and requesting it again. I do agree with my colleague from the 10th Ward that we do need some more information, some more scrutiny with our parks, recreation, this whole thing that's going on here. But as I said previously, we've had a lot of public testimony in regards to our park. I am at the park every day with my dog, and I see the condition, and we cannot afford to let our parks begin to go down, because once that happens, it's going to cost an incredible amount of money to bring them back up again. And so what we had voted on previously keeps our city moving in the right direction. And I think that although there has been a lot of testimony on the traffic planner, I would encourage our director of traffic transportation to look at other ways to address these issues and assign the current staff to get to work on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Well, we're going to take a vote on this amendment. Those who are in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose?
Nay.
And abstain? Nays have it. Any further amendments? Alderman Morrison.
I'm not gonna make an amendment now, but I do, want to look at the library, some things about the library. So we do have time, before the actual vote, but I did want to, make that statement at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So noted. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Would this be the proper time for policy amendments? Okay. I'd like to present two policy amendments. I will present them separately. So.
Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
Okay.
The motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion?
I need to-
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, the first policy amendment that I would like to propose is that all city departments be open and in person Monday through Friday for resident needs. And I'm sorry. And the purpose for this amendment is because as of today, everything's been lifted. It's as if COVID didn't exist. And I feel that in order for residents to meet their needs, we need to have an open city hall and make it where everyone is pretty much back in the office. Of course, there's always flexibility in the departments. They can run it with certain office hours, but I think it's important for City Hall to be open and that all departments be open and in person for the demands of our residents. Thank you.
Yes, Alder Douglas.
No.
It was already second. It's been seconded already. This is discussion. Alder Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to speak in opposition to this policy amendment. I don't think it makes sense to make this a policy amendment. I'm not even sure how we would enforce it. And it may not even be appropriate for our departments to have the same exact hours. I think we ought to take a different approach. I believe that the question of public hours for different city agencies and departments is a worthwhile topic to discuss. I think we could, through either the Finance Committee or maybe even the CSEP, have a workshop where city staff can come and talk about changes in that public face for our city agencies now that the emergency declaration is over. I think this is a good question to talk about. I think it's totally inappropriate for a policy amendment. I urge colleagues to vote it down. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I am opposed to this amendment. One thing that we all have to remember is that COVID showed us a lot. It showed us that we are able to get the job done. People are able to get the job done, and you don't always have to be face to face. And so for us to sit here as a board to, during this session to say that, all offices or everyone has to be here, you have to really dig down and look at each department to really say that, because even though the way of the world was you came to work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that's how things function, COVID showed us that it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. And so to sit here and make a mandate on something that may not be necessary, I don't think is appropriate. So I am not for this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I also oppose this, although I do understand the spirit in which this was given. It is important that our department heads are present for our constituents. It's important that our city hall is open and meeting the needs of our residents and our constituents. The language is I'm a little nervous about the language because some departments open up at 8 a.m. As they do over in our building department. And I think it's a little far-reaching for alders to make this kind of demand upon city departments that is really under the administration. And so I'm hoping that we will, through some kind of workshop here, as our chair has stated, what is going on with our city department. And if I may, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to also say, let's get back to work. Let's open our city hall and get back to work. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I was a little hasty by making a second to that, but I just want to speak on that piece because we need to get our offices back open eventually. I mean, it's every day. I know we all get calls pertaining to not getting the services that people need. I myself dealing with not just our offices, but it's hard to get in touch with some of these offices, and it makes it very difficult for our residents. I hear complaints all the time, and I know you all do too. And just dealing with some personal experiences with government, period. Getting in touch with government agencies, motor vehicle, Social Security. It's trying for people. So we do need to have that conversation. And I think we do need to move forward on that and have that conversation in the future.
Point of clarification, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
I take from Alder Douglas's first comment, which was he might have spoken in haste when he seconded the item, that he's speaking in opposition to the policy amendment, but in favor of the discussion.
That's what he's saying.
I'd like that clarification from the Alder.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would just remind colleagues that in deliberations, you must first begin by being clear. Do you support the item or not? And then you can nuance your conversation. But if you just lead off with the nuance, then we don't actually know what you're saying.
Yes.
So colleagues, please, are you in favor or opposed? And then add your explanation. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. I too am not in support of this amendment, but I do want to impress upon this body to have the discussion. Thank you, Alder Fester, for bringing awareness. I get calls from my constituents every day. Does not fail. My phone rings at 7, 6 a.m. in the morning with issues, and they cannot get through to certain people, certain departments, and it's frustrating. We, as elected officials, had to work during the pandemic. We worked. Our constituents got through to us, but they didn't get through to the departments we directed them to. That has been an issue and it's continued to be an issue. So I do press upon this body to let's have discussions and let's get back to work. Thank you. Any further discussions? Alder Fester.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. While I agree with everyone, I do believe that residents and people want face-to-face. Although we did learn a lot during COVID, we are still serving the public. And in order to serve the public, we have to be present. And in order to be present, we have to be available to the public. And that is the point of this, is that, we as alders are on 24/7. I'm sure we've all gotten calls in the middle of the night trying to figure things out. We've gotten calls on Saturdays, on Sundays. And I'm not saying our departments did not work during COVID, because they did, and they continue to work because it shows in our city. Otherwise, our trash and recycling wouldn't be picked up, street sweeping wouldn't happen, et cetera. So, with that being said, I think it's important for departments to just be open, but I will retract this amendment. And I hope to further discuss this. And the reason for policy amendments is because I feel like it just has more teeth versus a communication going through and it coming before a committee. So I will work on that though, and I thank you for the discussion.
Thank you, Alder Fester. Any further amendments? Alder Fester.
Policy amendment number 2 that I would like to present. I need a second. Sorry. I move amendment.
Second policy.
I can't speak anymore. I'd like to move a second policy amendment.
Second. All right, thank you. Your second policy amendment has been moved and seconded. Discussion?
So the amendment is that it was learned from HR during departmental presentations, the challenges that they faced during the hiring process, and a request for a report with a plan to be presented before an aldermanic committee to be reviewed. It doesn't, I have here September 1st. It doesn't have to be September 1st since this person just started, but explaining better hiring efficiencies. Should I continue? Okay, and I know that, a workshop just like the previous amendment will be suggested, but again, I think we need to hold some teeth. We learned a lot from this new HR person, the challenges of 3 to 6 months of waiting to hire someone within that time period. They're getting other jobs. Is this why we have so many vacancies other than salary? There's a lot of questions out there. And again, the only reason for these policy amendments is because it gives it more teeth and it prepares those departments to be present and be able to give us a better understanding if there is a way for us to have better hiring efficiencies in all these departments, especially since we do have all these vacancies. So it's just a request for a report or some kind of plan, even by the end of the year, December 31st, to present something that will improve those efficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm speaking in opposition to this policy amendment for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think we need a policy amendment in the budget to accomplish this. The chair of the Finance Committee is more than happy to schedule a workshop with city staff, with the relevant city staff about the state of hiring after a suitable period of time has elapsed after the new rates are implemented in the new fiscal year. I think that's totally appropriate, and I'm committed to do that, well in advance of the budget workshops next March and April. Whether that's, October, November, but I'm more than happy to work with staff and leadership to make sure that happens. So I don't think a policy amendment is necessary, but I also think the assertion that putting it in the budget gives it more teeth is just not at all true. It's been proven in the past that policy amendments didn't actually have any effect. It's a way to make a speech during the budget cycle, but it's not actually enforceable, not unless you have a policy amendment that's a companion to a sequestering amendment that actually triggers the release of funds or not. Absent that, it's just remarks at a budget meeting, and so I just don't agree that putting it in the budget gives it any more teeth. But I don't think we need the teeth, because the teeth is right here in the Finance Committee. The city staff are willing to do it. I've already asked them if they're willing to do it. So I encourage colleagues to vote no on this policy amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. While I appreciate that, it does have teeth. And why is because I could submit a communication and could sit there in the back burner for years. And there are a couple that are in the back burner. So I need a true commitment that, a workshop or public hearing, whatever we want to call it, does take place, because it is important that we hear what the concerns are, because it affects the way we run the city with this. But I need a commitment that if this is going to be done, it's going to be done, because there are communications. If you want me to list at least one of them that's been sitting for almost 4.5 years regarding, tax abatement and LISHTA, that's been sitting there for a long time. And so, and it hasn't been heard. So I need a commitment that this will be heard. I hope I make myself understood as to why I feel this gives it more teeth.
Mr. Chair.
I'll just say very briefly that the item that she's referencing, nobody has ever made a commitment to hear that, except for the two makers who are not in charge of scheduling it. So I, today, as chair of the committee, have made the statement in front of everyone here that we will have a workshop on the item, and that should be enough for my colleague. No such statement was ever made about this other item that my colleague from the 10th Ward is referencing. There's a big difference there. But I would also just go back to the fact that it's not appropriate, we don't need it, and I encourage colleagues to vote no. Thank you.
Further discussion? Alder Festa.
Provided that Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, provided that Mr. Chair has made the commitment to hear this, I will retract this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
She rejected the amendments, and that's all. Any further amendments?
Any further amendments? I'm so sorry, y'all. Seeing none, back to the item as amended. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So I just want to encourage colleagues to vote favorably on items 1 and 2 as they have been amended by this committee this evening. I want to thank everybody I thanked earlier. I also just want to briefly say that once again, we are supporting the city's efforts to attract, hire, and retain qualified, talented people to work for our residents. We've done it with the contracts that we voted favorably on. We're doing it with the executive and confidential employee increases that we've voted on. And this is good. We hope to see more positions that are currently vacant filled in the new fiscal year. We will have a workshop about how that is going at a suitable time during this next fiscal year. And we're going to deal with the increase to our budget of those raises by saying not at this time to the question of many of the new positions that the administration have proposed. I think that's a responsible thing to do. And I encourage colleagues to vote yes on items 1 and 2 as amended. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Alder Frollo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm just briefly going to say that I support these items as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned earlier, way back at the beginning, I still cannot support until I get some questions answered. So I won't be supporting the amendments just yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All abstain? The ayes have it.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I move items 3 and 6.
Second.
The items have been moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Colleagues may be wondering why move those two items together? Well, because they go together. Item 3 is our capital budget plan. Item 6 is a reallocation of previously allocated ARPA dollars that would go towards projects that otherwise would have been funded by further capital borrowing. And if colleagues remember, the administration has proposed a $55 million capital budget and reallocating about $6.3 million previously allocated ARPA projects towards capital ends. That would bring the total to over $60 million, which is the target amount that our city has borrowed over the last few 2-year budget cycles. I think it makes sense to stick with the plan that we've had, which is to issue debt no greater than about $60 million every 2 years. This ARPA fund reallocation will actually help us to bring that down a little bit, which I think is helpful for our long-term debt service payments. I encourage colleagues to vote yes on the motion at items 3 and 6. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Mr. Vice Chair.
Been a long night, I see. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd actually like to make an amendment to appropriating ordinance number 3.
Second.
The motion for an amendment has been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just a change of language where you do have it before you. This comes before us every year. There's the current language and the proposed language, and the change between the current and the proposed is basically to remove or to restructure debt service payments from the end of the sentence. And the reason behind that is because if the mayor proposes restructuring debt service, the issue would come before the Finance Committee and be voted on by the full Board of Alders versus just certain people, which is basically the mayor, the controller, 3 alders. And the last time this was done, I believe, was 2014, where we have all that debt service. So it's basically just giving transparency to the process and allowing it to come before the Finance Committee to be voted on by the full Board of Alders. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Alder Frollo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I oppose this just simply, we've had this discussion year after year. The administration also opposes it because of the time restraints that it takes to get something like this before the committee, especially before the Finance Committee, communication, having it scheduled, and many times this has time restraints to it. Won't go into all the long details of why this very rare thing should be opposed, but I just encourage colleagues once again to oppose this. It's not part of our structure, and it just clearly will not work if it should ever happen again by this proposal, or actually by this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
Further discussion? Alder Morrison.
Yes, I am opposed to this amendment, as my colleague from the 27th Ward said. This is something that comes before us every year, but there's a reason why we have leadership. And so when you have leadership and everyone clearly has a vote for leadership, when you have leadership in place, it's easier to get 2 or 3 people to the table than 30. So, I am not in support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, okay. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hurd. I'm not in support of this amendment. We have leadership for a reason, to spearhead and make decisions for the body. And every year, Audifesta does this, and we know that it doesn't work like that. Let it go. It's not gonna happen. Thank you. I'm not in support of this.
Further discussion? Audifesta.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to be clear that this was done in the past. Up until a few years ago, that's how it was conducted. It was through the Finance Committee and the full board, and if special meetings had to be requested, then special meetings were had for any type of emergency financial decision. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Alder Morrison.
I do want to add, that's why it was changed. It didn't work. So if it worked, we would continue that process, but obviously it didn't work. And obviously we were put in situations where we could have missed funds, we could have missed something. And so the reality is we have leadership, and there's certain functions that leadership needs to sit in, make decisions so the city can continue to move. So I do want to put that out there. We're an evolving community, an evolving city, and as we evolve, things change. So I'm not in support.
Further discussion? Audifesta.
I will just end it with this. It has more to do with transparency and having the public have a voice as well, because it is the taxpayers' monies that we're putting a risk to when we go into debt services. So it's mainly also for transparency. Maybe it worked, maybe we didn't. We weren't here. I was only here with this process in place. But I feel that true transparency is important. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Further discussion? Anyone else? All in favor of this proposed amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Any abstain? Is there any further amendments? Oh, the ayes, the nays have it. Any further amendments? Seeing none. Mr. Chair.
I have nothing more to add, Mr. Vice Chair. I encourage colleagues to vote in support of items 3 and 6.
All those in favor of items 3 and 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Any abstain? The ayes have it. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move item 4.
Second.
Item has been moved and second. Discussion. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is something we do every year. It authorizes the city to issue short-term paper, short-term borrowing notes in order to make sure we have sufficient cash flow early on in the fiscal year when we haven't gotten our full haul of tax collections and other building permits and other revenue. It just makes sure that we're in a good position to pay our bills. It's something that many organizations do, and we do it responsibly. And I encourage colleagues to vote yes on item number 4.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of item 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The item has it. The ayes have it. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move item 5.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move an amendment to item 5.
The item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I bring my colleagues' attention back to these unbearably large sheets of paper to tech page 4. This is a requested amendment by the administration that regards some of the wording of some of the fees for the lighthouse, the Canal Dock Boathouse. And you'll see them yourself. It really has to do with when you get a permit for event, how long is your event allowed to happen? And the staff felt it was appropriate to change the duration of events that were permitted according to this fee schedule to be a little bit longer. And that's the only amendment requested by the administration. On this sheet of paper, you see also a section that says for information only, special fund position additions. That's not relevant to this item, and it's also not something we're going to vote on. It's just a courtesy update to us about some additional language to be put in the booklet. But because it's special fund related, it's not subject to finance approval at this time or board approval at this time. It's just a change that will happen in the book as it was published when the new published version comes out. So the only item that's really relevant to the amendment at this time is that top item number 33, the wording changes for the fee schedule in the Canal Dock Boathouse. I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And abstained? The ayes have it. Mr. Chair. Any further amendments? Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
I encourage colleagues to vote on the item as amended. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any discussion? All in favor of the item, say aye.
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 Those opposed and abstained, the ayes have it. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Vice Chair, if it's all right, I'll make it just a brief announcement before we adjourn.
go right ahead.
I'll reiterate the thanks to everybody I've already thanked before. I also want to thank colleagues on this committee for your diligent, hard work over this entire budget cycle. This budget and its multiple items will go before the board and have a first reading on Monday the 15th. It'll have a second reading and a vote on our special meeting on the budget on Monday, May 22nd. Members of the public are certainly invited to come and listen to the full board go through this and to discuss potential amendments and to take a final vote. And encourage everybody to be there and and I thank everybody. And that's all I have to say as I run on. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further discussion now. Well, I take a motion that we adjourn. Okay, I'm sorry. Honestly.
I just want to take this time to thank my colleague and thank Mr. Chair for the work that he put into all these meetings and to get us to this point. I want to say thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur. This has been a long process and a new process for me to gather in, and I really appreciate all the work that you all done and shed the light on finance to me. My first time here. I know most of you have been here, but this has been really educational for me. So thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.